Okay. Okay. Mike Unsaker, 115, Equestrian Court, San Marcos, President of the Twin Oaks Valley Property Owners Association. I want to emphasize and reemphasize the growing water shortage issue, one created by drought and by overdevelopment. I continually want to press for the idea of individual metering of each and every apartment and living unit. This is the only way we can have any sort of rational rationing. If you have a master meter for an apartment and you've got almost 40 apartments on one master meter, how do you track down leaks? How do you apportion rationing? The state has indicated it wants to ration first indoor residential use. SB 814 allows you to apply whatever conservation measures you believe is necessary. Another problem is when you have developers telling you how they want to buy meters in multi-family units. They're going to naturally go to fewer meters, and fewer meters means your water tier conservation system goes to hell because everyone's pushed up into higher tiers, and the whole idea of conservation tiering disappears. This will come up again on item 2.1, but I think the district has a duty to make sure that tier structure is in place, that we avoid water waste and track usage properly, and that water meters are appropriately sized. Thank you.
I'll kick that off real quick and then turn it over to James and Rob. So the board may remember that back on October 17th at our last board meeting, representatives of the Emerald Heights Homeowners Association came in to express concerns about water use, water cost, and maintenance responsibilities. And they were looking to the district for some assistance. They spoke during just oral communication, so there was no ability to have a conversation about it. So the board directed that we agendize that item, and that's what's in front of the board today. Just as a point of information, district staff did meet with Mr. Cannon and Ms. Dubois, is that how you pronounce it? I think it was last week, to discuss some of these issues, and we're going to make a brief presentation today to talk about the fruits of that conversation, and I'm sure Mr. Cannon or Mr. Dubois would want to speak after that. So with that, I'm going to ask Rob to kind of go over the issues.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Good evening, President Hernandez, members of the board. I just wanted to go over the 4 points real quick that we discussed with the Emerald Heights Association here. The first item being water meters. The Emerald Heights Homeowners Association currently has 21 irrigation meters that serves about 63 acres in their area. So one of the things that we discussed was swapping some of their 1.5-inch meters and some of their 2-inch meters. Some of their areas have lesser demand, some of their areas have more demand. So the idea was to put the larger 2-inch meters on the areas that have more demand, thus keeping them out of Tier 3 as much as possible. So that was one way of attempting to reduce their cost on water. One thing that came out of that was we were willing to do a meter swap. The only question being there is the water service lines that come from the pipeline, the main, the streets, to the meter. Are those sized properly? That's something that staff's going to investigate. That's something here that staff wasn't wanting to take on from a financial aspect there, but we can have some discussions with that there with the HOA in just a little bit. The second item being road maintenance responsibilities, and so this is the map that you have up here. So basically, the road that's shown in yellow is our easement that comes from Woodland Heights, Glen, and that goes to what are called our Richland tanks. So we have 2 tanks out there. Now, our easement does extend beyond that yellow stripe there. It continues to the northwest, and it loops back to Woodland Heights, Glen on the northwestern side as well. So one of the things that the HOA has asked if we would participate in a slurry seal of that easement road, which staff has noted there that we may be willing to do, and that would be another item that we want to present to the board for discussion. Third item kind of related to that there is brush maintenance with that easement as well. Now, staff doesn't currently do that on an annual basis. We do maintain our easements as needed for access, and we do that there for all of our easements on an as-needed basis. So we have discussed perhaps doing a maintenance event here, which would probably take 2 or 3 days or so within the next few months. And then the fourth item, which is actually shown on a second figure here, that's the one where it's the access gate on the northern side of the Emerald Heights development. They were asking if we would be willing to participate in the maintenance of that access gate. And as we know in the staff report, that's not a gate here that staff needs for its security purposes. We do have the Palos Vista tank that we do have to access through that gate to get to. However, the Palos Vista site has its own fenced off area, and so it's got its own security there. So we indicated that we would not be interested in participating in that gate's maintenance.
Maybe I can add some of the requests that they've made, I think, are reasonable on a one-time basis, but I would suggest that the board not agree to take on permanent maintenance responsibilities on a recurring basis, but we would certainly be willing to help them on an as-needed basis from time to time.
I have a few questions. Number one, the map that you're showing me, is there a way for you to use a pointer and show me where the rest of our easement road is? You have part of it in yellow, but part of it you don't even show on the map. I don't know why you would do that. And then if you point out exactly where your gate is that you're speaking about, and then also explain to me, is this accessible to anyone as far as the easement road? Is it accessible as a pathway or a walkway to anybody, or is it fenced off completely?
Okay, so as the latter question I'll address first here. The easement that you see here on the map, no, that is not available for public access. There is a gate just off of Woodland Parkway, and there's also, I believe, a gate off of Woodland Heights Glen on the northwest side of the gate.
So I need a pointer. Show me how our new pointer system works. How does our new pointer system work on this? You're going to retire. What are we going to do for a pointer system? Okay.
And just to clarify, it's fenced off with a pipe fence. It's not fenced off with like chain link. So it is access for walking, but it's not a walking path or a designated trail.
To continue on that. No. Can you point to? Oh, a hand.
So the highlighted, the yellow portion, and we meant to highlight this area because that's the easement portion here that we typically utilize to access our Richland tanks. Now, staff does have legal authority to go to the northwest here and connect out to Woodland Heights Glen, and we do utilize that there when our operators complete like a water testing circuit when they go up to the Palos Vista tank.
Why does it
So-
only show part of the easement? I don't understand. You do
Yeah,
use it.
I meant to show just the portion that was going to the Richland tank because that's the part there that we utilize the most, is that portion that goes from Woodland Parkway to the Richland tanks.
And can I ask you, I'm sorry to the board and the staff, I meant to get out there to look at it firsthand, because without being able to do that and see any pictures of it, is it blacktopped all the way around to the entire, through Woodland Parkway to Woodland Heights Glen? Is it a blacktop all the way through?
It's all paved.
It's all paved all the way through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So when they were talking about maintenance, is it overgrown pavement?
So as far as the easement, is the easement overgrown? In staff's opinion, no. So I don't know what the HOA is going to say about that. But if it was overgrown, then our maintenance staff would be, trimming the brush back so it's not impeding our access.
So there's the growth, the vegetation growth, but I think you were referring to the pavement condition.
Yeah.
So it is old pavement, and it probably does need some type of treatment to keep it from deteriorating.
But is it used by the general public now?
I don't know who goes out there. So I wouldn't say the general public, but the district does access it
Sure.
there. I believe the DID has facilities out there, so they're out there. There's cell towers out there. The personnel are there. The HOA's maintenance people go out there. There may be members of the public that, I don't know if they use it for a, biking trail or whatever. So it's not just the district that's accessing the road.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't hear the presentation last time. I just want a little bit of clarification. First of all, and Rob, or the cursor, where exactly on these little lines, what belongs to the Emerald Heights Homeowners Association? It encompasses all of it. I'd like to know that first. And then I have a couple more questions.
As far as what they own everything except for the actual Richland tank sites, which are, that's correct there. So you see the two black squares where the reservoirs are at? Those are district properties there. Now, the yellow line here, which designates the easement, while the district has access rights through that, that's technically part of the Emerald Heights HOA's property.
So that's an easement on their property.
That's correct.
So then I would like to clarify, you have done part of this in yellow, not because that's the only easement, but this is the part of the easement we use on a regular basis. And the HOA also uses it with their landscapes and stuff. And so this is what portion we're talking about in the discussion. Or can you clarify, is the HOA asking us to do all the way over to the, I assume this is our easement, this little road? Okay. Are they asking for maintenance on that portion to the Woodland Heights Glen?
That's correct there. They are asking for the entire portion there from Woodland Parkway all the way to Woodland Heights Glen.
Okay, and my next question is, and I just have two more, is if this road, regardless of where it is, and we use it, what would our normal maintenance be when we say as needed in the past 23 years? How often have we had to go in and seal it, or zero? It's never been sealed. Okay, so obviously if I were to go out on that road, I think when I first came on, we did take a tour out there, and I even know the gate you're talking about at the end of the Glen. We don't use the far end as much as the other part is used, because we take regular trips to the tank.
That's correct. So the part of the easement that's in yellow is the part that we primarily use. Now, that's not to say that we don't utilize the other part. Our water operators will occasionally utilize that there to complete their circuit to get up to the
Just not
Vallecitos
as
tank.
frequent.
Correct.
Okay, and my final question was on the, what's the word? The growth management on it. Now, since I haven't heard the homeowners, I only read the letter, I want to know what would we call need as far as if, how wide, I guess, and how wide is the paved part? And then what do we kind of use as a guidance of clearance for fires? standard. Thank you. Excellent. Good job. Yeah.
So the pavement there, and this is coming from Mr. Cannon himself here, he says it's about 12 feet in width.
12 feet in width.
And then brush grows up to that there. So one of the things that in our meeting last week with Mr. Cannon that he inquired is if that can be, the brush can be kind of pushed back a foot or two away from the road itself there, so it gives a little bit more breathing room for it, so you don't have growth coming right up to the pavements.
Okay.
Yes, and it's within a 20-foot easement. So the 12, you got a 12-foot road within a 20-foot easement,
Okay,
basically.
so staff's understanding, as you're telling me, is then the HOA fulfillment is asking us to help maintain the 20-foot easement?
They've asked us
That's
to.
what they asked.
They've asked two things here. So one is the slurry seal on the road
12
itself,
feet.
and then the other part here is with the brush maintenance about keeping brush off of the road and a little bit, a foot or two on either side away from it.
Okay, so they're not asking for us to do 4 feet on each side of the 12 or whatever it would be, the 20-foot width. You're saying you don't know what they're asking. I really should when they're up, but I'm asking you, in your mind, what were you envisioning?
We've had this conversation with Mr. Cannon during last week, and at first he did inquire if we can go 5 feet on either side of the road. Said we can't do that because then we're outside of our easement, we're into open space, and then we're going to get our hands slapped there by the wildlife agencies.
So the 20 feet is our easement?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Now I've confused myself, but thank you.
Question, Rob, for me. Is that a house or a pump station up there at the end? If you continue up the easement road, and there's that white, what's that there? A maintenance yard for who?
Yeah, that's
For the landscape
for the
folks. So apparently, now, this is the HOA's maintenance. And obviously they have access to this road as well. And that's their maintenance yard. How do we get from that maintenance yard over to West Height Glen? That's another road there?
correct.
Okay, very
Yeah,
good.
it connects.
All right. And how often does the maintenance people access that road? Well, if he doesn't have the answer, I'll ask you the same question because I can't hear him.
So, per our meeting last week there, Mr. Cannon stated that they typically use that northwest about 80 to 100 feet or so of that access road to access their maintenance shed with their personnel.
So they come in off of Heights Glen and then go to their maintenance?
According to what they said, yes.
So they don't go from our tank to their maintenance yard that direction?
That's correct there.
Okay, very good. All right. That answers my question. I think Director Sinella had a question.
A couple questions specific to the road here. And I'll ask them the same thing when they're up. But do you know that why are they making the request? I understand the benefits from a preventative maintenance standpoint. Why we might want to re-slurry the road after 23 years, so the overall road lasts longer. I get that, but is it just for looks? Is there a bunch of potholes in it? What's the status of the road now?
Yeah, the road, it has been, many decades since it was last sealed or paved here. So it could probably utilize some maintenance here. And I'll, turn to Ed here for clarification on that. But so it can probably use some maintenance on it.
Is the road, is it gated on both sides, both ends?
That's correct.
And it's not open to the public?
Correct.
And then second question about the brush, why is that request being made? Is it just simply because it looks better? Is it because it's safer? Was that explained?
Well, so I'll try to take it from the district's perspective here. When I discussed this with our construction manager, who's in charge of maintenance as well, he says there that the road itself, as far as a brush maintenance standpoint, is fine. Could maintenance be performed by him? He said, yeah, we can do it there. It would be like a 2 to 3 day projects.
Well, it would be a two or 3 day project initially, but if we were gonna maintain that clearance ongoing, then it would be an ongoing.
Yeah, and I say that as that's a one-time thing if we were to do it.
It doesn't make sense to me to do it once if we're just gonna do it once. If we decide to do it, I think if we decide to do it because it makes sense to do it, I'm not convinced of that yet, but if that ends up being the case, then I think it's something, if it makes sense to do it once, it makes sense to continuously do it, for whatever that reason. I don't know what that reason is yet. If it's just for looks, then I don't know if that's compelling enough to me, because whatever we spend on this project or any project within the district, it essentially gets wrapped into rates, right? Rates go up. We have no other source of revenue, right? So I'm very mindful that if we're only doing something because it looks better, but your rates for your entire neighborhood are going to go up because of it, and the rest of our customers, then we have to have a conversation about that. But if there's some other compelling reason where it makes sense, then I think we should probably do it ongoing.
George, just to kind of clarify one thing, from the district's perspective, when we do maintenance on easements, it's for access, safety, and also environmental concerns. So we have easements that if we let overgrow could become environmental. If the growth impedes access or becomes a safety issue, then we go out there and do maintenance. And that's our primary drivers.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ed, maybe you can tell me, what's the widest truck we would ever have to bring up there? Don't tell me in inches, just approximate feet.
That normally would be one of our dump trucks, which you're talking a few feet wider than a pickup truck. But they've been up there before, and the road's definitely wide enough at 12 foot.
So 10 feet is,
Yeah.
you think, more than wide enough?
Yeah.
You think? Then what was the rationale? I mean, as staff, I'll ask the gentleman that too. I'm assuming that this is open space easement around our tank, and all that open space there is open space easement, probably. We have 20 feet of it. However, what would the rationale be if they told you that they wanted 4 feet on each side maintained as well?
I was not part of that discussion.
Okay, whoever was.
Rob, I have a question relative to the gate.
Well, Rob's going
The
to
other
answer this
gate.
first.
Pardon?
Okay, Rob's going to tell me the answer first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, what was the rationale that they wanted 4 feet on either side? Maintained, cut down, I don't know. What was it they wanted?
I don't know exactly why we want to go that wide, except maybe just to keep the brush back that far. But yeah, I don't think the district would want to do something like
And
that.
the general public does not use this road in any way, shape, or form?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Now, we have a gate at the beginning, and we have one close to the tank. Okay. Then there was another gate that was in question.
Yes.
And where's that located?
Okay, so that is on your other figure that was included in the staff report package.
Oh, here we go. And
That's the one.
And-
Okay. So
and
what?
this is Emerald Heights.
Okay,
Do we access that? Go ahead.
this is at the north end of the Emerald Heights development. Basically, what they have here is an access gate that separates the Emerald Heights development from the High Point developments.
Right.
It's a gate that, they keep this gate in, working condition here so that people don't use this as a shortcut or a thoroughfare to come through their homeowners association area. So obviously the High Point development has their own entrance gate off of Mesa Rock Road that has been in and out of operation for the last few years since the development hasn't gone anywhere. So this is the gate that they've asked if we can participate in maintenance for.
Well, what maintenance is necessary for that gate?
To keep it oiled here, if there's any basically it's just that kind of maintenance here.
Do we access this road at all?
Yes. Yeah.
We do.
Because to the north here, if you follow that road, you're going to go to our Palos Vista tank, which exclusively serves the Emerald Heights developments.
And so we have to pass through this gate, if you will, and the gate is locked to keep it from being a circulation area.
Correct.
All right.
But you just said the Palos Verdes people use a different entrance. They don't use this entrance.
No, this road will swing all the way through the High Point development to Mesa Rock Road. Thus, the reason to have the gate there.
So there is another way to get to this tank.
There is another way.
For us.
We can get to it through Mesa Rock Road, so we can go all the way through Escondido and off the 15 freeway through Mesa Rock.
Yeah, it's not the most
Currently.
convenient way for our folks to
Right,
get there.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
okay.
And
Makes sense.
sometimes they're going to this Palos Vista tank after they've gone to the Richland tanks. They just want to go to the Richland tanks and then go up to the Palos Vista.
Thank you.
Director Evans? No, let's go ahead.
I'm going to move back a little bit. I wanted to know on the first slide where we had the easement. Is that easement dedicated or used by fire department at all?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
Okay, that's perfect. I can ask the same question of them. Is the gate that we're talking about going out to the other place, High Point, is that what it, wherever I'm going, is that a gate, just out of curiosity, how often do you think we drive our trucks through it? Just telling me we use it doesn't mean anything to me. Is it once a day, once a month, twice a year?
We use it, yeah, a few days a week.
A few days a week?
Yeah, to do water testing and so forth at
Okay.
Palos Vista.
So to assume we were there in and out 3 times would be realistic?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. That's any other questions? Presentation?
It'd probably be helpful to hear from
No,
the,
yeah, we will
the
definitely.
speaker.
And I had a speaker, but I guess he gave up the ghost. The homeowners association, step right up, sir. And I don't know if you have a discussion, a presentation, or anything, or you just want to ask questions or receive questions. Whatever you'd like to do, we're here for you.
I think I gave my presentation last time when I was here, and I'm sorry, Betty, that I wasn't here. You weren't here to hear it. I guess we talk about start with the reservoirs. I mean, our primary concern really is the swapping of the meters, and as I mentioned last time, the Emerald Heights spends about $1.3 million. You receive that in revenues every year for water. We feel we're a pretty responsible part of your municipality as far as water sales. We feel we're good customers. And this last year, we ended up with a $100,000 increase in our water rates because of the tier three pricing. So that's where I started from. And we met with Robert, and we met with Glenn, and we've had numerous meetings with staff over these past months. With that, we came down to we wanted to exchange 4 2-inch meters with 4 1.5-inch meters. And first we were told no, that they couldn't do that. And then we started questioning more and found out, well, maybe we can. And then at our meeting last week, the general manager said we could do it if it's just all it is a meter swap. And in other words, a 1.5 for a 2. And then Robert was going to go back and check the size of the lines coming out of the main line, as far as the main water supply line for Emerald Heights, to find out what the size of it was. And so I guess we're waiting on that. And I think that's important to us. I mean, that to us is a $30,000 a year savings in how much we pay you from the association.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's our important element. I hope that you guys can see fit to make that exchange for us. As far as the easement roads, the reason for wanting to increase the width on it is for fire. Okay, I mean we're concerned about fire in Emerald Heights. We're up on top of a large plateau and we spend lots of money every year. We do lots and lots of work to keep the brush away from the houses and And we have this, and your access road, okay, your utility road is also an emergency access road for us. Okay, so we have 3 different exits leaving Emerald Heights in case there's a fire. We have Woodland Parkway going out both east and west, and or north and south, I guess, going towards Mesa Rock. The only time we ever open that back gate is if we have a fire in Emerald Heights, and we have not opened it because we have not had a prevailing wind type fire coming towards Emerald Heights. So in 23 years that we've been an association, we really haven't used that gate. So that's why we were asking the district to maintain it. So, well, you guys are using it, and there's been some controversy back and forth. The gate's broken, and we don't hear about it. And the next thing, it's open, and we end up having people come in from Mesa Rock because of the High Point developments issues. And so it's nice keeping it locked. And so that's been a little bit of an issue. And as I mentioned to your staff, I mean, that really was. I really didn't care about that. I really cared about the other 3 issues. I just kind of threw that on the table.
Very good.
Okay, and so with that, I'll go back to the road. Okay, the road is 23, 24 years old. It never has been maintained. It does need a slur and a crack seal. What we offered, because we do know that first off, we have cell towers up there that use it once a quarter. We have our landscape staff that's up there that uses a small portion of it. And our people do walk on it. This is not aesthetic. We don't really care how it looks. I mean, because nobody ever sees it. But it is something, it is a road that your group and our group is going to need to preserve and actually keep for another 20 years. And actually slurring it's going to allow that. Okay, so I mean, and doing a little bit of crack sealing. So we came up with, we actually had an asphalt person come up and give us an estimate of about $7,000 to $8,000 to put the slurry on. I came back to the district and asked the district, I said, well, why don't you, because we use part of it, you use part of it, why don't we just say we both spend, 50, 50, 50, and we'll get the thing done. And then it came back to, well, we only do it on a one-time basis. But since then, talking to staff, it'll be this instance, and maybe another 20 years, we'll talk again when additional work has to be done to it. But, so that was one. And as far as the brush management, again, fire. Okay, you're asking about fire trucks going up there. Yeah, I mean and I also worry about I worry about fire as far as getting people in and out, as far as the district being able to maintain their facilities. If there is a fire up there, adding a couple more feet on each side as far as brush management, it makes sense. And as I mentioned to your staff, I mean, you have the use of Honor Camp, and having the Honor Camp come up there and spend a couple days, why not? And I've done that many times myself, and some of the jurisdictions I've worked with. But so that was kind of where I was coming. It's a lot less expensive. It just makes sense. And so with that, that's the road and the gates and the water issue. And again, the biggest issue for us, honestly, is getting those meters swapped. And I just feel, and I think the association feels that this is kind of, we weren't given a whole lot of notice on the. We felt we weren't giving a lot of notice or on the increase of $100,000 to our association for 21 irrigation meters.
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
Director Martin, did you have a question?
They only use the first 70 feet. They don't come out toward. They don't move out. And as far as the district uses it almost daily. We do.
Mr. Snell?
So just to clarify, the easement road, the road itself, it belongs to Vallecitos?
We have easement rights, but so do a lot of others there. We have cell sites there. We have Vista Irrigation District, for instance, and of course, the Emerald Heights owns the property, so they can have their landscapers use that.
The easement just gives us right of passage. I don't
Okay.
believe it bestows any maintenance responsibilities upon us.
So, am I wrong in thinking that there is some benefit to doing preventative maintenance on a road like that to preserve the road longer? And there could be, if you preserve the overall road longer, then that's a good investment. Now, has the district considered, now that this has been raised, engaging all parties who use it and looking at some way to express that there is a need for this preventative maintenance to take place and some sort of cost-sharing way to fund that through, like, whoever does the towers and Vista Irrigation and others, and the HOA and us?
We haven't specifically asked for the HOA to develop a cost-sharing agreement, but we have raised the issue that it's not just us that uses the road, and it's not just them. So if there's an expectation of shared maintenance responsibilities, we need to broaden the net, probably.
I don't know if we need to make it so complicated to where we have to have this shared maintenance agreement. I think that, at least on an ongoing basis, but at least this one time, since it's been 23 years since this road's been slurried, in the best interest of all the parties involved, so that it doesn't end up cracking and washing out and whatever happens to roads that are not maintained. It makes sense that we would want to engage them just from a communication standpoint and just say, hey, it's like when you have a fence, you share a fence with your neighbor, right? You have a conversation when the fence starts going down of, hey, we need to get this fixed, you're going to share the cost, right?
And I actually agree with you. And there's been situations on other access roads where we have easements that we have shared in the cost. And we do benefit from a well-maintained road. My concern is I don't want it to become an ongoing responsibility.
No, I tend to agree with that. I think that the starting point is to have that communication with all the stakeholders, and with kind of an understanding of let's do the needed maintenance now, and then we can come back and reevaluate things every 5 years, every 10 years, and have another discussion if we need to, whatever that might look like. But I don't think that we should allow the possibility of having a potentially ongoing maintenance, which I don't think, I'm certainly not ready to make that kind of commitment tonight, but I think there might be a need, and it sounds like, just everybody here, it sounds like there is a need to probably do a little bit of maintenance on that road, to have that conversation with all the stakeholders and see what we can come up with, at least for that initial one-time slurry. And then we go from there, from a communication standpoint. I do want to focus, though, I'm not personally not as concerned about the brush maintenance piece of it, but I am a little interested to learn more about this honor camp. I do know that we have utilized them, and if we're able to kind of keep the brush off our road within the parameters of our easement, the extra foot or two that we have on each side are up to 4 feet, and we can do it relatively inexpensively through this honor camps. Maybe I'd be open-minded to that, but other than that, I don't think it's something I'd want to spend a lot of money on. Tell me more about the number one issue that they have, though, with swapping out the meters. So we would essentially be taking existing meters and just relocating them in different locations on the property, right?
So that's the intent here, is to take their existing meters here, and I think Mr. Cannon said there's 4 2-inch meters that they like to swap with 4 1.5-inch meters, and vice versa. That's not really a problem. That can happen.
That's great. That's good news. But what does that all entail? I've
So
never switched out a meter.
That's the question right there. Is for these larger meters here, we want to make sure that they have the sufficient service line size to handle the water flow that's going through, a 2-inch meter here. So that is something here that we're going to check here with operations to verify that that's the case. If that is the case here, then everything's fine. We really shouldn't have any issue here with the meter swap.
Yeah, if it was a simple matter of unbolting a 2-inch meter and dropping in a 1-inch meter and reconnecting it, I wouldn't have any problem with the district doing that. The problem is the meter body's lengths aren't the same. So you have to start adjusting piping, you have to change the meter box, you may have to be working in the road to reconstruct the service line length. We don't know at this point in time what's involved. We are waiting to see what happened tonight to see if the board was interested in helping them. But we can go out there and evaluate it, and if it is a simple matter and relatively inexpensive, I'm happy to help the HOA out. We just don't know at this time of what's actually involved.
So what would it take to investigate that?
Well, I think it's sending either our meter shop, a representative from our meter shop out there, or somebody from our construction shop, or maybe both, to say, hey, if we want to switch this 1.5 for that 2-inch, what's involved? And then we can come up with an idea of what we're talking in terms of costs before we say yes or no.
Okay, so if the board kind of gives you some consensus on that, are you willing to do that?
Absolutely, yeah, we can go out and develop.
And so are we talking a few hours of somebody's time?
You know, it may end up being a day. They got I don't know how many sites there are, and then they have to come back and they have to do some calculations possibly. So, you know, it's not a lot. It's a reasonable request, but I don't know what the work involved would be to the back end. Thank you.
Okay.
Director Evans?
Yes, thank you. My questions are really, I'm going to say on the slurry part, and I know that's not really as important to you. I think that it was written as needed. I think it's proven that the road needs something, and I think we should do what we need to do and share the cost in whatever way can be negotiated that's equitable. And then we don't need an ongoing contract, but I think that the words as needed is there. So if we don't need it for another 50 years, great. But if it turns out in 15 or 18 years we need it, we renegotiate. That's how I think we resolve it. We don't, write this legal contract that locks any of us into every 12 years we'll slurry the road. So I think that we're all kind of in agreement on that to some degree. But my questions on the meter are, so if I'm understanding this, you have 4 meters of one size here and 4 meters of a different size there, and they want to be swapped. But swapping is difficult because you can take larger service lines and put a smaller meter on it, but you can't put a larger meter on smaller service lines. Is that the gist of it? Or
Generally, that's the gist of it.
that's the gist of it.
Yes.
Okay. So if I, as an individual, wanted to swap out my meter, I know I'm going to have to buy a new meter because don't have 2 to swap. But if I did, what would my responsibilities be as the homeowner and to do that?
So
what is the district's and what is mine?
So as the general manager was stating here, we'll investigate, if what parts are sized properly or not sized properly. If we do find there that, we need to relay new service line, for instance, in the road, obviously that's a big expense because there's trenching involved, there's labor involved with that, different size parts, etc. So if that's the case, then yeah, the district would be taking on quite an expense under that scenario.
Okay, well, that really wasn't my question. You answered it, but it really wasn't my question. My question I do understand, I do think we need to go out and evaluate it. There's no point in negotiating when we don't know what we're talking about, especially when we're talking about money and time. What I'm asking is, if I was an individual, what part of the line is my responsibility and what part's the district? Because I understand this is a big group of people, and they do provide us with a lot of revenue. But the way our district works is that we don't get spare revenue. We don't, build in surpluses. There's a reason for it. So
It's already come out of ours, though.
unknown leaks, and it was a lot of money, but I was charged because we tried to make it equitable that everybody who goes up to that level pays it. So all I'm trying to ask is if I wanted my meter swapped, what would I be responsible for as an individual?
So, generally speaking here, if you just want to upsize your meter, for instance, here, and the district would make the homeowner responsible for any and all improvements from the main line all the way up to the meter to make sure that the infrastructure is sized properly for the new size of meter. Now, everything that happens on the other side of the meter is always going to be the homeowner's responsibility for maintenance as well.
Okay. So I agree we need an evaluation, so we can take on that. And then my other question, now this will be to the homeowners. I know that Emerald Heights has had many struggles because you do have a lot of land that you maintain, and you maintain it very nicely. I'm just wondering if you've had been able to take advantage of either a recent audit that you can get for free. I believe we have them for commercials, don't we? An audit where someone can clarify where they can possibly make a difference for you, and because I've had mine audited several times over the past years, and things change with what your landscaping is, plus how the new sprinkler systems are. So I'm wondering if you've done that. And then I'm also wondering if your landscapers have been able to benefit from any of the, there's free classes in water-wise and water efficiency for professionals. And I wonder if they've had an opportunity to take advantage of it. There's a lot of changes going on in the technology of irrigation as well. Okay.
Landscapers. So we're real familiar with this. I've gone through DART and all the different drought action response stuff that we've had over the past 40 years, and we've gotten better. I mean, since we've started, we've a lot more drip irrigation systems going in. Back 3 years ago, we ended up getting an award from your water district for putting in some drought tolerant type plantings and so on. So I think we're pretty good. I think we need to get better. And obviously, with the Tier 3 pricing the way it is, I've been putting the screws to the boys, and at $2,000 a day every time we water, okay, it's expensive. But realize, I mean, this is kind of realize one thing is that, you know, as far as the fire department, they have required us, you know, as far as to have irrigated slopes, okay, because of our location and the slopes and stuff around it. This is not something that, if we could just turn off the water in certain areas, we would. There would be no doubt. I mean, it would be very simple to do. So, but we're good at it. I mean, I feel that I'm pretty effective, and I think our inspectors are pretty effective, and we've definitely got the message through to our landscapers. So it's I think we're good.
Well, I commend you, and I think that's great. I didn't know your background, so I just wanted you to know those were available. If you hadn't looked at them, regardless of what we renegotiate,
Right.
that's important that you have that in front of you. So
$2,000 a day. Think about that.
a lot of money, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. I had one other question, and I forgot what it was, so I'll come back.
Director? Yeah, as a matter of fact, you're very good at it. In the last few years, you've gotten an award from Vallecitos staff, have you not?
Yeah.
What was that award for? Thank you very much. I think you do a really good job with what you have there. I'm sorry the price of water has gone up, and it will continue to go up. That's life in Southern California. You got to pay for water. The part that I have a problem with, I guess, to a degree, is I have no problem. I think our staff should go out and see what could be done, and I think the Vallecitos can spring to pay for that. But I think what they need to do is, at the same time, when they see what needs to be done, give you an estimate of what it's going to cost if you want Vallecitos to do it. Can't pass that on to all the other ratepayers that have gone up just as much as you have. I mean, everybody at Tier 3 pays the same. So they've gone up just as much throughout the city, Tier 3. everybody's done the same thing, so it's not we're picking on Emerald Heights. It's a beautiful area. It's that cost has to be borne by someone. And I think of our staff, we have the personnel to do it rather than having to go out. And I don't think we've ever done this before, I don't know, but just a thought, in my mind, is instead of you having to go out and hire outside people to do all this, it may be, maybe not, depending if whose people are doing it, that we could give you a price on what it would cost for us to do it. So we pass the cost on to you. Don't know if we've ever done it before, don't know if this board wants to do it, but I know that's a thought. I'm trying to give you thoughts and ideas, but I don't want you to, in my opinion, I'm one person, that there's going to be a freebie going on. Someone has to pay for it. But I think to go out and look at it and then give you a cost estimate, if it can be done or if it can't be done. But it sounds like if it can be done, they're willing to do it gratis, which is excellent. But if it can't be done, there'll be a cost involved.
So, I think what we have determined here this
If I
evening,
could just-
more questions.
I think the investigative piece of this and finding out exactly what it's all going to entail is important. I am mindful of, I think, what along the same lines that Director Martin was talking about is, I've actually heard this similar concerns from other HOAs. So whatever we do end up doing, these meetings are recorded, they're televised, they're watched. We're most likely going to end up having to do them for every other HOA that has multiple meters on their property, which is most of them. So we have to be mindful of that, because if we get into a situation where we are spending a significant amount of money to do this, if the board were to choose to do that, then chances are it's going to snowball into a much bigger issue for us. And again, having served with these folks for over 4 years, we try to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And we only have, it costs what it costs to buy the water, import it, take the salt out of the ocean, all those different things that we do deliver to the homes. And somewhere the pay for that, the money to pay for that's coming. If we lower tier 3, that means 1 and 2 is going up, or 4. So something's going up, right? So it all balances out.
And that's how come I didn't ask for tier 3 to go down. I just asked for this meter swap so we can at least.
And I understand that. I'm definitely. I hear what you're asking, and that's why I think the first step is, and I'm open-minded to it too. But I just want to know what we're dealing with. I mean, are we dealing with, a really like a general manager Pruin said, are we dealing with just a couple of a couple of bolts and half hour each meter, and it's over with, and that way, maybe that is something we do. Some sort of outreach with other HOAs at that point and try to offer that as a service too, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's going too far. I got a couple of grins over there saying, oh. But.
Yes, sir.
One last question. What do we charge when somebody doesn't pay their bill and we send a truck out to put a lock on their meter? What's the charge for that?
$25.
No? Yeah, but what do they charge?
Yeah.
And then what do we charge to undo it and hook them back up again? Okay. So you can see that our costs are pretty high. So for them to say they go out there and make the simple changes, thank you, staff, for doing that without having to get us involved.
All right, very good. I think we're going to give staff direction in the following manner: to go out and do an estimate of what it's going to take to fully swap out the 4 4s for the 1.5s. We're going to find out from other users of the easement if they would participate in a one-time slurry at this time, and we're going to see what it would take to do 2 feet on each side of the road for the brush management. And the gate that is broken or whatever, we don't care. They don't care. It's going to stay where it's at. Is that the last item?
I agree with everything except that last part. We care that the gate we can't have it closed. You can't have it be stuck in a closed position.
Oh,
then
no, we use the
prevent
gate.
our access.
Oh, okay.
We need to access along the road to get to the upper
Then
tank.
whatever we need to do on that gate to make sure we have access, we have to do. Very good?
Well,
Okay, I have one item though, because maybe we can change the motion. So as far as the slurring of the road,
Yeah.
what the association has offered, because we're receiving revenues from the cell towers. So we offered, in fact, in my report, is that we'd pay for 50% to make everything easy, and the district would pay for the other 50%. So it's a 50-50 deal going out.
And what was the cost of the slurry?
Well, that's the issue. I mean,
Well,
I know, but I was talking to the general manager. We're sitting there going back and forth. If it's prevailing wage, we don't pay prevailing wage. But it's like $8,000.
okay, thank you very much. That's, I thought I heard 80,000.
I thought I heard 70, so. I'm
Yeah.
glad you
Yeah,
clarified
well,
that.
Okay, 8,000, okay. Very good.
What the roadway needs is slurry, it's not gated at all?
The roadway is gated, but.
Gated.
Gated. Oh,
Gated. Where it's starting to split apart.
Alligator.
Does need patching in some areas there, it sounds like.
So it needs more than just a slurry.
Then that needs, yeah. Put that into our ultimate discussion. And do we believe we can get all this accomplished before the next board meeting? So we can, I mean, I'm just asking that, and don't know unless you ask. If that's possible, or should we? Or what do you, how much time do you want?
Well, we can certainly sit down with them and talk about the cost sharing for the slurry. If the board says 50-50, that's done. We can send somebody out and take a look at the meters. That's not a problem. And I can talk with our staff responsible for we have an overall district-wide brush maintenance program on our easements. How could we work that into that, this particular easement into that bigger program? So.
And it's kind of brought up a good point. Whatever we decide to do on the slurry, we'll have them do it, because we don't need to pay prevailing wage, and we don't need to add our construction management 2.5 times the cost. So we'll figure that out, and we'll get that back to our board here in a month.
Well, it depends what you want. If you just want to report to the board, I could do that in a couple weeks. I don't know that I can have that's a written report, not at a board meeting. If you want it to be agendized for a future board meeting, we need a little bit more time. But I don't think it needs to come back to a future board meeting. Unless the board wants.
We're going to need to know the cost to make a
Right.
decision as to how long this rope is.
And what needs to be done out
Yeah,
there.
if it's just a swap out, then we don't care, but if it's a swap out and then into the street with the new services, well, that's a whole different cup of tea.
And even a swap out, if it takes a few days, is questionable, because that gets into money, real money.
Well, then
Okay.
that's a question the board will have to deal with.
Right.
Yeah, so it'll probably be the December 5th meeting is the earliest we can get back in front of
Then,
the board.
all right, very good. Then that's what we'll do. We're all in agreement?
Yep.
December 5th
If you
meeting.
add in throwing a can of 3-in-1 oil for that thing.
We'll agendaize this and come back, and you'll get some answers as to where we're going and how we're getting there. Thank you.
We got it.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming. That gives us something to do. All right, we're going home now.
Right.
All right, now on to item 2.
Okay, while Matthias works his way up here, at a previous board meeting, the board did ask for an update on the board audiovisual project and to give an opportunity for the board members to give us some feedback. So Matthias has been kind of managing the project for us, so. James, can you get the mouse? I try not to grab audiences. It's bad practice.
Well, we're just talking to Matthias, is that water envy? Our finance manager usually carries mugs around. Now, you carry something around too? You got
Yeah,
something
we're
with you?
competing. So
It has to be with you?
yeah. Stay well hydrated so I don't
Keep
pass out.
hydrated,
so.
yes, okay.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. I'm here to provide a brief update on the construction of the boardroom audiovisual and lighting upgrades project. Construction efforts began on August 2nd, 2018, and they are scheduled for completion on November 12th. We're currently 90% through the construction effort. Monitors have been upgraded from 18 to 21 and a half inches that are before you. The staff table and the podium have been fabricated and installed to match the decorum of the room. In addition to that, that's not the highlight, in addition to that, we are now able to present from both of these locations. The two screens behind the board of directors are functional. As you see, we have updated the logo, and a limited amount of programming has been made. I'll get to the punch list of the remaining items here shortly after I speak to what has been done thus far. Side screens, such as the one that you see to my left, to your right, will be used on an as-needed basis. Typically, these will be utilized when the staff may have a detail-laden report that they need, that they would want the audience to be able to see relatively easily. The digital Congress system, that's the voting system that you see before you, the small black boxes with a few buttons, have been installed. The configuration has not yet been completed. 2 high-definition cameras have been installed, one above the board and one behind. I know that I've heard a couple questions related to how you can determine whether or not we're actively recording. There is a light to the left of the rear camera. When that is on, that means we are recording. Very similar to the existing microphones, the gooseneck microphones have a red light. When the red light is on, that signifies that your microphone is on. Finally, track lighting to illuminate the board has been installed per the recommendations of the architect, per their design recommendations. I know that it definitely has been a deviation from what it previously had been. Unfortunately, when you go from a very dimly lit room and you want to capture better video, it warrants significant improvements to the lighting. And so that is one of the effects of wanting to get a better picture. I am going through the remainder of my notes. It seems like I have already discussed all of the things that have been done. Now briefly to discuss a few of the punch list items that are still pending. A few of the ceiling speakers have not yet been installed due to a few material supply issues. And what I mean by that is the 12-inch by 12-inch ceiling tile, drop ceiling tile that you see has not been manufactured in well over 10 years. It's very difficult to find replacements of these. What you may not be able to see, the template or the cutout for the new speakers is larger than the width of the existing ceiling tile. That creates a bit of a problem because you can now crack ceiling tiles that you can't replace because they're no longer being manufactured. We're still working out some logistics in terms of trying to create, have the vendor create a bezel that goes around to make sure that we don't, we keep the cost effective as the vendor would be responsible for paying those costs. In addition, a few programming changes are still pending. Camera presets need to be addressed, and end-user training. We know that we have been working on this project for a bit longer than we had originally anticipated, and it's drawing to a close, and soon we will all be having training sessions on how to utilize the system and really be able to obtain value from it. I think that covers all of my notes, so that officially concludes my update for the board. I'm able to take any questions if you have any.
This just turned on by itself. Oh, okay, thanks. That was one of the questions, is that I've already noticed over the first couple meetings that we've had with the system, it's tough to remember to hit the light or to activate the microphone, especially on the, like, even when we're doing roll call, right? I mean, you're just saying here. And so you're on, is it better to leave it, and then maybe this is the question for the installer, but is it better just for all of us to leave them on at all times or not?
So I can answer that, I believe, and Chuck, let me know if I'm off base here. This type of voting system, it's Digital Congress, it's a parliamentary voting system, which essentially means traditionally it's a request to speak, and the president would approve that request to speak, and then subsequently all the directors would take turns speaking. So with that in mind, how this system is designed and ultimately how we're currently utilizing it is not in line with the original specification of the system, if that makes sense. Also, the current system, if you were to keep all of the microphones live or hot, however you want to say it, it only would allow for a maximum of 5 microphones to be on at a given time. We do have 5 board members, but that would ultimately mean if the podium or staff table, or if the general manager were to turn their microphones off, it would be one of yours, one of the board of directors, that the first one to turn theirs on would be the last to turn off. And so that's how that would work. It's a round robin.
So it's not better just to leave it on the whole time?
With the exception of the president, because the system is designed in a way that we could have the president's microphone on at all times, but the others would essentially need to take turns via round robin and or request to speak.
A couple more quick ones. You mentioned the 2 cameras here. Does the system, how does that camera get activated? Does it automatically pick up when somebody's at the podium, and then it switches and it starts filming them?
Correct. Yes. So how it works, the push to talk feature, when you turn on your microphone, essentially via programming, that camera will, the live shot will then be on it's subject to how we decide to program it ultimately. The features are there such that we can press on the button and it can automatically turn to the podium for the live shot. It's a matter of configuration and how we decide to proceed.
Okay, but that hasn't been determined yet?
Correct.
Okay. When we get to the point where we're able to use the voting buttons, is that going to, will our votes be displayed on the monitors at the same time that we're voting, or how does that play? Who sees this? If I vote yes on something, hypothetically, does it go, where does it go?
They should be displayed, and I think, Chuck, you might be able to elaborate.
Yes.
As this is the voting screen, I mean.
When you, after the vote is held and the vote is displayed, it will come up on the board and it'll show. During the time that the vote is being taken, the clerk has a list of your names in it. She will get a indication when you have voted. When everybody has voted, then she can display the vote, and it will come up on all the displays and everybody sees. So it's basically a secret ballot, and
So once all 5 of us pick something, then it
Right.
comes up. Okay. And then lastly, the little hand, that's the request to talk, right? And is that not activated yet?
that is correct.
Okay. What's the timing on the hand?
Chuck?
Sorry.
Like, what's the ETA to have it work?
Hopefully before the next board meeting.
Okay.
I'm trying to get Hayden out either next week or the week after.
Super. Thank you.
Yes.
The little hand that showed up on the screen eventually, when we were asking questions about the easement, who has access to that little hand?
That's the mouse control, and because we were presenting from the clerk's PC tonight, it was her mouse over here. So normally, if Mateus was presenting from there, he would have the local control over his computer and be able to do that with the.
Is it possible to make that hand bigger, more like Mickey's bigger hand? So to be easier to see.
That's
And
more
a
of an
question I
IT
have is-
question.
We've been directed by the general manager to look into a few options that would allow multiple presenters to point at a given location on the screen. So we're looking at a few options that will allow that interactive movement of the pointer.
Okay,
Ultimately being larger, yes, a lot larger than the small cursor that you saw the hand that you
For
saw
instance,
earlier.
as we had tonight, there was we had to have Vanna White, our own Vanna White, get up and point. So is that what that screen's gonna be for? Because they have to push that out every week. We got work comp problems, you know. But are we gonna walk over there and point to it, or are we
No.
gonna be able to point to it?
No,
No,
that is
no.
not the plan. Ultimately, the presenter will have full control, and they'll be able to show you on the screen using the electronic devices where they want to direct your attention. Because I know when you're looking at a presentation, it's not always easy to find out where they're trying to get you to look. You can't always see the
Right.
arrow or the hand. I don't know if you saw that the
And
Water Academy, we use like a laser pointer feature that's embedded in PowerPoint.
And vice versa, when we wanna know something on a map, we can't point to it where they can see it. They have to go, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
We're
that's
saying, a quarter over there, I mean,
Yeah, I think that'll be part of the training that we go through to try to figure out how the board can better direct attention to the staff. So it needs to be both ways.
okay, the speakers that you spoke about that need to be installed, we've noticed up here, we have a huge echo effect. Is those speakers gonna take away the echo effect, or what's the point of putting those speakers in at this point?
So I'll attempt to answer that. I think I have enough knowledge, but I might defer to Chuck. So there are a series of speakers that there are a few issues that could be causing the echo effect. The small boxes before you where the gooseneck comes, it has a built-in speaker to that. We've been playing with ultimately adjusting the levels on that to limit the echoing effect because those speakers are pointing towards the wall, which cause that echo effect. And so we still have not fine-tuned the system in terms of programming or adjusting the levels because we don't have the final speaker setup in place as of yet.
And the last thing is I have to mention about the parliamentarian effect that this new system has. I really do like that the chair recognizes the speaker, and when the speaker's done, then he yields back to the chair again. I think that's a good way of doing things, because as we see here tonight, we had some people that wanted to ask another question, and it's like, well, you haven't yielded the floor yet. Once you're given the floor, you should be able to ask all the questions you want to, and then yield, say thank you, whatever it is, but I kind of like that idea, thank you.
And to follow up on Director Sinella's comment with the microphone, as Chuck demonstrated tonight, either Chuck, he won't be here every time, but Diane will be able to turn a director's microphone on if they forget to turn their microphone on personally when they've been recognized by the chair.
Including the podium?
I'm going to say yes. I think they can
Yes.
control
Good,
any of that.
because I've already seen the speakers don't quite know, and we're not going to have them trained up.
And even after we're all trained, we're going to forget it. We know it's going to happen.
There's going to be a test.
Yes.
Turn that on. I had just one simple question. I know we have this at the Water Authority, but we do not turn on our mics for roll call or for a simple approval of a consent calendar or anything. We do a lot of votes that aren't actually, we vote when it has to be a roll call vote with the mics on, but the mics we don't turn on for those things, and it speeds it up because you're absolutely right, Mike. We're all trying to hear, and I'm assuming that would be all right, that we just did it like we normally did for roll call and for basic consensus.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the Water Authority does not record their meetings, so they don't have the issue of making sure they catch the soundtrack.
Oh.
So that's the issue here. We're trying to make sure that everything that is said is captured on the film that we have.
But because that's the same thing we do at Encina. We don't turn the mic on for a roll call or just a yay or nay vote. Are they recording in Encina?
They do not record and broadcast.
I guess, well, I'll wait and ask my questions too. Okay.
I'm
All right, well then, oh yes.
I'm sure the County Water Authority must record. They might not show it on video, but they must record it so that the minutes can be done by the secretary after the fact. It's recorded, it's just not video.
It's not videoed. I don't know if they audio record it. You're probably right. They may have some audio recording. I'm just not aware of it.
But there's no video.
Okay, but I would definitely like to have a look at not needing the microphones on at all times for roll call and or just a yea or nay vote if it can be picked up from someplace else. Because half of us won't be turning it on, the other half will, even after our training period. And your discussion about the echo from here in the wall, we have an echo, but also the microphones out there are as though you were in a bucket. So, and then when we get the speakers and you get that adjusted, definitely do that. I do want to acknowledge that the bright lights that were on us the first week or so are now gone. I see all the lights being used. I knew I was going to go back for a rebate, so they figured out how to do that. So that took care of that. And I do appreciate the time button here. That was very helpful. And I think that's all the questions I have. Yes, Mike.
Not to get too far off topic, but these ceiling tiles are probably as old as that easement road that we were talking about earlier. So
they are.
Yeah, it already, you can kind of tell there's, over the years, there's some discolored, and they're definitely I want to say 70s, but they're probably more like 80s. But what's the plan with that? I mean, eventually we're going to have to just replace those.
No, I don't think so, because I do see we've had some small deviations.
Well, yeah,
seen it already.
That it looks like the road we were talking about. So. Oh. Is there, I mean, can the ceiling tiles be replaced not today or not in the near future, but at some point will we be able to get new modern ceiling tiles put into that might actually, and does it make sense to do it while we're doing new speakers? I don't know.
We can certainly look into it. Our facilities maintenance people, they usually, look at the facilities and make recommendations for what improvements are required. So, but this is certainly on our radar screen now through this experience.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Very good. I think we've got pretty well beat up on item number 2. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Did you have something else? Take a quick break. 5 minutes. Very good.
All right, I'm just going to turn this over to Rhonda, and she's going to present to the board the new proposed recognition program.
All right, I always wanted to say, is this thing on? Can you hear me? Okay, good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. This item, starting on page 32 of your packet, was previously discussed at a closed session on August 15th, proposing revisions to the Employee Recognition Program. Staff also met with representatives of the Employee Association and worked with attorneys at BB&K to develop a comprehensive program in compliance with various regulations, including the California Constitution's prohibition for gifts of public funds. As indicated in the background of the staff report, the current program includes limited individual and team awards, but no forms of recognition for district-wide performance. The proposed changes include minor revisions to the existing awards and new peer awards that I'll go over briefly later, organizational achievement awards, and individual achievement awards. And they have some fantastic names, so I can't wait for that part. So both of the achievement awards, the organizational and the individual, would be monetary awards in the form of lump sum bonuses for employees, and they would be awarded either by the board or by the general manager as indicated in the policy. For the general manager, it would be the individual awards only, and there would be a maximum of $500 per employee. One type of organizational achievement award would be when the district, either in whole or in part, like a particular department, receives state or local awards, and a second type when the district receives a refund check as the result of cost-saving measures by employees, as was the case with the Aqua JPIA refund check. That second type of award would be called a gain-sharing incentive plan, and would only happen when funds are designated by the board as gain-sharing. And it could depend on other factors like the financial condition of the district at that time, and it would be totally within the board's discretion. It wouldn't lock you into having to share those dividends. If the board designated the funds as gain sharing, the dividends would be divided equally between the district and employees. That's the proposal. That it's your discretion if that's the way you'd like to do it. More detailed information can be found in the attached resolution to adopt a gain sharing incentive plan. So switching gears, like the Organizational Achievement Awards, there would also be individual achievement awards for employees with significant personal accomplishments, such as awards like Supervisor of the Year, Collection Worker of the Year, and new job-related certs, degrees, and licenses. This award would be included with the presentations that we currently hold at board meetings to recognize staff for their new job-related certifications and degrees. Other proposed changes to the program include quarterly raffles with gift cards for employees who receive what we call accolades. Those are certificates when the public recognizes an employee for going above and beyond in their job duties, and something called waves, which would be peer awards. We currently don't have a way for an employee to give thanks to another employee other than just, the normal, hey, thanks, man. And then HR would say, I'm sorry, that doesn't qualify as an accolade. So we created a separate category called a wave for employees to give recognition to one another. We also did a revamp of the SPOT awards. Those are awarded by supervisors and managers to employees, and we're calling those ripples because it's a fun name. And they can, what this change would do would allow the supervisors and managers to get reimbursed up to a certain dollar amount per employee and maximum amount per month so that we can control the cost of it. The reality is that when you ask supervisors to give awards to employees out of their own pocket, some are hesitant to do so. Others will do it generously and they won't think twice about it, but there are some supervisors, and particularly those with larger departments, they just don't, provide those type of awards for employees, except for Ed. Ed goes all out and gets a catered lunch once a year out of his own pocket and makes the rest of us look bad. So examples of those types of nominal gifts to employees would be, it could be a gift card to Starbucks, it could be donuts. We're talking small dollars, and unfortunately any cash or gift card awards would be taxed, and they would have to go through our payroll system and reflected on their paycheck, and there's that's not a district thing, that's the IRS, and there's no workaround for that. As you can tell, I had a lot of fun coming up with names for the awards, and if you want more detailed information about the caps on them or the different types, those can be found in the revisions to the employee handbook. So in closing, the proposed changes will encourage more participation in the program and help to promote efficiency, initiative, and morale. The cost would vary by the type of award with the limitations outlined in the policy. The total is estimated to be no more than $8,000 per year. That's assuming max participation, max number of awards given, excluding gain sharing, which would be paid by refunds received by the district and at the board discretion. Staff recommends adoption of the board resolution approving a gain sharing incentive plan and approval of the proposed revisions to the employee recognition program as outlined in the employee handbook. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Section 4, I like the idea of we get rebates back from the JPIA or from some, we get a large rebate back that we share that with the employees. I think that's a great idea. As far as gain sharing, here's my question and my problem. Don't want to become the Oprah Winfrey, which the 5% has become. You get a raise, you get a raise, you get a raise, you get a raise. Everybody gets the 5% until they reach their cap. Because how do you give a raise to Joe and Jim and not give it to Ernie without being discriminatory? So I think that 5% is interesting in itself, and I think that this could become the same thing. with every year looking for more money to give out to the employees, and we give it out to everybody. So I'm very concerned about that, because it's like, if I'm a supervisor and I give something to Jimmy, how do I give it to Bill? I don't know. I'm just saying, it just leaves for a lot of contemptuous feelings, I think, I'm not thrilled with that idea, but that's me personally. I like the idea of sharing GPIA. I like the idea of doing that equally. I don't think that should be 50-50. I think that should be left up to the board to decide how much they want to give the employees, and not a standard 50-50. Because you get back $1 million, you might want to not give out 50-50. Get back 1,000, you might want to give out 900. But I mean, I don't know why the 50-50 is in there. So that's my observation on it personally. I worry about it growing and then animosity between people because I got $50 and you didn't for doing the same thing.
Any other questions?
Well, it's just a clarification. When I read this on the gain sharing, I read that this is referring to if the district as a whole did a cost savings as the JPIA. And I know when we got that money, we had talked about, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could share with the employees? And I believe that is when you said we needed to agendize and put it into a program in order to be able to do that. So when I read this, I thought it was already limited just to, where I read it, only available if and when the district receives a refund check and the funds are designated as gain sharing. So it is just when we have that kind of an event. It's not.
That's correct.
It's not an expanding program at this point.
The only time gain sharing would come into play is if the district received a refund check and the board decided to make those funds available and call them gain sharing.
Okay.
And then for the 50-50, it doesn't have to be set up that way. There could also be a maximum amount that's left at the board's discretion. If the 50-50 language is problematic, we would just need to update the resolution and bring it back to the board. If I'm understanding Director Martin's concerns correctly, I think it's more on the supervisor level, and there are controls in place not only with the monetary value, but also in the process to ensure that there's no favoritism or just giving awards out because it's the next person's turn. The manager of the department would approve the reimbursement of any spot awards that the supervisor was submitting for reimbursement.
I have a question relative to this last JPIA monies. I think I was told we couldn't give out those monies because the policy wasn't in place.
That's
Am I
correct.
right or wrong on that?
That's correct. We didn't have a program at the time, so we couldn't do anything with it.
And being led somewhat of a little skullduggery in my past history, there's no way to get around that legally?
Going forward, if we adopt this gain sharing incentive award, then we could come back to the board at a later date and address that JPIA check.
Oh, if we adopt this, we could go back and talk about the other.
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
But that would require a separate action. The action that
Yeah,
the
right.
board
That,
tonight
no,
is just the program.
That's okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to have to lose that opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Question?
I wanted to, first off, I think this program is really cool, so thank you for the effort that you put in it. And I think it will pay dividends in the long run, and it'll be a nice thing to do for all the employees. I did, though, I wasn't going to say anything, but since Director Martin brought it up, I do, when you were giving your presentation, it went through my mind, too, that I think I kind of meant with the 50-50 part of the gain sharing. I think, can we change the wording in the policy to just say something just at the discretion of the board? Or something along those lines?
Absolutely.
In our motion, we could do that.
So unless there's more people that want to chime in.
Anybody? Do you have anything?
I would just say I would say I think it's a great idea. You're absolutely right. I think we'll benefit from it.
Then,
And I'd like to make a motion, or you make a
no,
motion?
go ahead, I'll second.
Do we have any other questions, Director?
Yeah, I just had a question on the section on fiscal impact. You estimate 8,000 per year on this. The last sentence, you say the cost of service awards approximately $1,000 will include. And so is that historically what has been happening?
It varies from year to year depending on the number of employees that are hitting their anniversary date, but that's an average. We looked back, I think, over it was either 5 to 10 years.
And so does that include any kind of awards that we've done, or just specifically the service awards?
Only the service awards. We don't have any other forms of monetary awards.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, to clarify, you're saying you're gonna put a cap on it of $8,000 a year, is that correct? A cap on what staff gives out? Or do we have to take that in before you can give it out?
No,
You're making it a line item, budget item for $8,000 a year that staff gets to bequest.
no, the $8,000 would go into the admin services budget to incorporate all these various types of awards, and not all of those are given by staff. The only ones that can be given by staff are the spot awards. Everything else is the general manager, or the cost associated with a quarterly raffle for employees who receive accolades or waves.
Okay, so section 1, 2, and 3 have nothing to do with section 4. Section 4 is a standalone. Section 1, 2, and 3 is something that staff added to it.
Yes.
Section 4 is the gain sharing, and 1, 2, and 3 are separate.
And there's a cap, or can we put in the motion a cap of 8,000 a year on section 1, 2, and 3?
Right.
Forever? That'll change.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the motion, whoever seconds the motion.
We haven't started a motion yet.
Oh, I thought someone did, I'm sorry.
No, I cut her off.
I'll make a motion. Move to approve the new employee recognition program as presented by staff, with the one caveat to change the language on the gain sharing to from 50/50 to at the board's discretion.
Would you add, and also a cap of $8,000 on 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, isn't that already in there?
No.
No,
it's not in the
There's no
resolution.
money, there's no money.
Okay.
It was just an estimate in the staff report, but it didn't.
I do think that is,
The other awards. Those are all in the employee handbook.
Okay. Then we would have to deal with that on the policy issue.
Well, you'd probably see it in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The policy has those other awards and the maximum amounts per award, and then if you total them all up, that's where the fiscal impact of $8,000 comes into play in the staff report and would also be in the budget.
so we don't need it. It's already in there.
Correct.
Can you clarify your recommendation now? Because you've got 3 separate items in there. And the one they're focusing right now is the resolution dealing with the gain sharing incentive plan. There's also the approval of the proposed revised employee recognition program in the employee handbook.
Yes.
So
I'm not sure if I understand, but there are 2 different actions.
there's
yes.
2 different actions. So I just want to make
So then my motion is to approve, move to approve staff's presentation on the gain sharing program to create that policy essentially, right? That's what you're asking us to do? Section 4?
To adopt the resolution, but we'll have to bring it back with the change that you.
Yeah, with the
directed.
change of
Yep.
removing 50/50 and replacing it with at the board's discretion.
Any
Okay.
questions? Resolution, roll call vote?
Well, can I just clarify, your motion would be to approve the proposed resolution with the amendments to section 4 to reflect the 50/50 has been changed to at the board's discretion.
Correct.
But you did say that section 1, 2, and 3 are separate items. Didn't you say that?
I didn't say that. Those sections 1, 2, and 3 are in this resolution, but there's also a separate action in this agenda item to deal with the employee handbook.
Is that item number 2 on our agenda? It says 1, adopt the resolution approving game program, and 2, approve proposed revisions to the employee recognition program.
Yes, the sections in the resolution are only about game sharing. Everything else is in the employee handbook.
Okay, so it just appears it's together.
Yes.
But it's not. We're going to have to take a separate motion on item number 2 of this. Is
Yes,
that a resolution as
to
well?
approve the revisions to the employee handbook.
Is that a resolution as well?
No.
Okay, very good. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the game sharing program with the change that from 50-50 to at board's discretion.
Second.
And now we're going to call for a roll call vote.
Yes.
Director Evans?
Yes.
Director Martin? Yes. Director Sinella?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Yes, Director Martin didn't have his speaker on, so I'm going to get recorded.
I had my speaker on. Someone shut it off.
Not me. And I'm in control.
Only limited to the 5 microphones.
Oh.
Her mic stayed 6.
I see.
Somebody's turned off.
See, we're going to have to change that.
Don't blame me.
I know. There you go.
I saw it blink
Our
off.
limitation as to maximum 5 mics open at a time.
That's not going to work. So, did you get?
For
you need to get him
For
again.
our group conversation.
I'm sorry, Director Martin. You need to.
I would say again, yay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Resolution passes. Ooh, yeah, 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 yeah. And
Program.
that's not a resolution vote. So, do I have a second on that?
Second.
I have a
Second.
question.
A question to
Would the
the
maker,
motion.
or the second, would you consider making it $8,000 cap on that?
I don't think it's necessary to make a cap.
That's what they're asking for.
I think it's
They're
good
asking
to-
for specified amounts of money for the award, and the 8,000 was a guesstimate of where they anticipate it will be.
Yeah, I think that
I think it's verified. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mike.
what-
You may want.
there are two things. They got the $8,000 based off of the individual award potential if you were to use it, give all of it out. Having said that, I don't think it hurts to have some sort of disclaimer at the bottom of this handbook that says this program's not to exceed $8,000. If it makes you feel more comfortable.
I would appreciate that.
Is that okay?
Yes, we can do that.
The motion maker would modify our motion.
I'm sorry. Was that an amendment to my motion?
It's a suggestion to amend your motion to add the language.
It's just a sentence. It's not gonna, no harm done.
No harm done. I'll accept it.
Okay, and second?
Second.
All right. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Whew. You guys are testing me tonight. Item 2.4. Construction contract award for Palace Vista Pump Station. Oh, I've been waiting on this one.
Let me make sure I'm on, okay.
180,000, this thing does your financial people.
Okay, shift gears here. Good evening, President Hernandez and fellow directors. So I'm here to talk about the construction contract award for the Palos Vista Pump Station Electric Generator Project. So the Palos Vista Pump Station, which shows on your screen there highlighted, which you may recall this looks familiar to Rob's presentation. It's located right next to the Richland tanks. So what it does is it lifts water from those Richland tanks up to the Palos Vista tank, and then that gravity feeds and supplies water to the Emerald Heights community. Currently, that pump station does not have a generator backup for emergency power. So if we were to lose power in that area, there's no way to provide water to that community. So this project is to ensure the reliability for that community and to install a permanent on-site generator along with the associated equipment pad and associated electrical work that meets the current Air Pollution Control Board and the California Air Quality Resource Board rules. So it has to meet those state requirements. So the engineer's estimate for this project was $130,000 on October 16th. We did receive 3 bids. You can see in your board packet that Berg Electric presented a low bid of $180,321. We did receive a protest letter from the second bidder, Baker Electric. They did have some, they did highlight what they thought were some discrepancies in the bid. That was reviewed by staff and by council, and the recommendation was to reject that protest letter as being without merit. The determination was those irregularities were minor and they were waivable. So we did complete the evaluation of those bids and did determine that Berg Electric was the lowest responsive bidder. We are planning to perform the construction management and inspection services on that project. We do have some construction phase services by some outside consultants that will help us out. If you look at the fiscal impact, we have a budget of $325,000. We have Berg Electric's price at $180,000. Just so you know, that $180,000, the breakdown of that is the actual generator itself is about 57% of that price. So there's also electrical work, connections, concrete pad, and everything else that needs to be built to support that generator. So we have a 10% contingency according to the Ordinance 146. We have our designer fees listed there as well. We have staff and overhead that was during the planning and design phase. We have the construction phase services. I mentioned that $2,600 is what is listed there. And then we have an estimate on staff time and its associated overhead during the construction phase, and that's at $29,000. I do want to point out that, for instance, if you look at that $29,000, I know we've talked about overhead and staff costs before. You have to divide that number by 3. So of that $29,000 that we're estimating to spend, it's about $9,900 of actual staff salary, and then there's a little bit less than $20,000 in overhead. So the resultant total for the project is $277,744. That does give us a surplus of about $47,256. So staff does have the recommendation to the board to reject the protest letter from Baker Electric as without merit, and to authorize the general manager to execute a construction contract with Berg Electric in the amount of $180,321, subject to the provisions of the contract. And I can answer any questions you have.
Questions? Yes, Director.
Yeah, what you just told us, I believe, bring it to layman's conversation, is if power were to go out, after this tank is depleted, this area has 0 water.
That is correct.
So we don't have any duplicated system, we don't have any backup system, we don't have, because my understanding, we had that all over our domain, was that we had redundant systems. There's no redundant system for this.
So of the 8 pump stations that we have that supplies water to communities at a higher level, 3 of those have permanent generators, which we're trying to do here, and then 5 of them have the ability to hook up a portable generator. So this pump station does not have that yet.
This is the only pump station we have that doesn't have a backup.
Director Martin, if I could clarify. So typically the way we like to plan for a community is to have 2 sources of water. When we don't have 2 sources of water, then we want a permanent generator on site. This area was supposed to have 2 sources of water, one being connected through that High Point development that went bankrupt during the recession. So they've been without that second source of water for a long time. The original developer, which was Shea Homes, was conditioned to build a portion of that High Point and line that connects Palos Vista area to the Wolf system. And that project was live and active back in 2005 when I first joined the district. The Shea Homes sold that portion, which is now called High Point, to another developer, and that developer went belly up during the recession. So they're without that connection, and we don't know if High Point will ever become a community again. There's always interest in that development, but nobody's taken the bait or moved forward with developing. So until then, this is an area where would need a portable generator normally. But however, with a dual connection would supply our planned needs of having a double connection to the system in case of an emergency.
Well, okay, so in the future, when a developer does show up and does develop, it will happen at some point in time, are they paying for a portion of this?
No, they wouldn't be paying for a portion of this project, but even if the developer does show up, we wouldn't really be able to supply Emerald Heights because it is significantly larger than the Wolf system. I believe, and Ed, you can help me out, the Wolf tank is 350,000 and Palos Vista is 4 million gallons. So it's only, you know, we could supply for hours, and if there was a fire danger or so on and so forth before that tank would be drained, because if we weren't able to move water from the pump station and had to move water from the Wolf system, it's 350,000 gallons compared to a 4 million. So there really isn't that reliability.
When a developer does come at some point in time, 10 years, 15 years, whenever they come, are they going to be required still to put a tank in?
They will be required to put the pipeline in that connects with the Wolf system to Palos Vista, including the pressure reducing station and all the equipment so we can move water both ways.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I have, again, it goes back to 50% of the 180 is for the plumbing, and other 50 plus is for the generator itself. Then we've got $5,000 worth of design that needs to go into place so that the builder can put in the pipeline. And then we have the $41,000 for staff time for planning and designing. And then we have the construction phase. And I understand that you've got to divide that by 3 for the real work that's being done. Where I'm having a problem is this is standard. We have here virtually 30% of this whole project is staff time and the overhead that we've required to put on there. And I know we have to pay for the lights. So, it's not that we're going to save any money by moving it from here to there, but, and I know there are opportunities that if we get a grant, then we can get reimbursed for that, which is money to us to pay for the lights. I'm just wish there was a way that we could either push this into a complete design build where we only have to have a construction manager out there and pay him 2% or 5%, and we don't have to deal with this. You folks can do other work. I'm just shocked that we have to pay this much money.
Well, Director Hanson, let me explain a couple things. So this is not a standard project. This project was originally budgeted in the previous fiscal year to be a portable generator to be rolled onto site. And the way overhead works is whatever staff, whether it's engineering, operations, IT, if they charge to a work order,
right,
their overhead is put on top of it. So in this case, this was an operations-initiated job in which operations was taking the lead, and they spent some time trying to order a portable generator that meet the California Air Pollution Control, APCD and CARB rules. And Ed, you could probably explain better than me kind of the instances that they ran into, but by the time they ran into this instance, there was already over $20,000 of staff time spent in trying to figure out a solution to this job before the job became rebudgeted for a permanent on-site generator.
Yeah, actually, the board approved a purchase of about $500,000 3 years ago for a portable generator that would power this pump station and another one. And the reason it was so much money is the horsepower of these motors at this pump station, they're 300 horsepower. So the smaller generators, which aren't very small, they're 200 kW, they didn't have enough power to even run one of those motors. So we were going to get one that would run this pump station and another one that actually has 450 horsepower motors, which is bigger, and take care of it all in one shot. The problem is, what James mentioned, APCD and CARB, the generators they're building right now, we could only use for about 2 years. So we saw absolutely zero reason for the district to spend $500,000 on a generator within 2 years, these regulatory agencies say, oh, you no longer meet those requirements, you got to sell it, and which means we have to sell it out of state or sell it to Mexico, which we've already had to do with our two 200 kW generators. They were perfectly good, but the regulators now in California said, can't use them anymore. So we weren't going to do that. So we stepped back, and it was a lot less money. And the nice thing about putting the stationary generator, after doing work with James and his staff and with Jerome, our regulatory specialist, we found out that once you put in the stationary generator, they can't come back and tell you can't use it anymore, it gets grandfathered in. So there's different rules. So it made far more sense to protect this portion of our district, and really came to a head when the 2011 power outage happened. We were like, well, we can't wait for a developer to finish the pipe point. We've got to move forward. So it's been an ongoing project for a while.
So from a staffing standpoint, we designed this job 2 times, essentially. We designed it originally for a portable generator with an automatic transfer switch, a pad for it, connections for it. And then once we ran into this problem, realized that spending $500,000 on a piece of equipment that would be only useful for 2 years didn't make sense. We kind of punted, rebudgeted, lowered the budget amount, and then started the design over for now an equipment pad for the generator and separate connections and an automatic transfer switch and all the electrical equipment associated with that. That being said, the overhead cost is still applied, and I know that there may be questions on that, and that's more of an accounting practice.
Right. And thank you for the explanation. That does give me more information relative to why we have the increase, because it's been done twice. I would ask, and in the future on our capital projects, to see if there isn't a way to move work so that staff doesn't have to do every piece of it, and perhaps there's some design build opportunities that we could look into where we can off that onto the contractor, and then we may only have to do the construction phase overhead staff. But thank you for the information. Yes, sir.
I just have to add, a little off the subject, but while we're here, is that I heard Ed much better than I heard the two of you, and Ed wasn't using the microphone. The microphone is hideous. I'm sorry, the cave effect is terrible, and I don't understand what you're saying at times.
So is this better without the microphone?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So much for the system.
Okay, very good. So now we have explanation, and I would entertain the motion to accept the award for the pump generation. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on. 2.5, acceptance of the Stargate Court and River Run Circle water line rehabilitation.
Okay, I get that one again. So this is a project acceptance for the board. Yeah. Okay. Hear me now?
Yeah.
So this is an acceptance for the Stargaze Court and River Run Circle Waterline Rehab project. The board may recall this was a project that there was an 8-inch ductile iron line on the Stargaze Court. It's a fairly young line. It was installed in 2002. We were having numerous failures. We were spending money to do the emergency repairs. We were getting customer complaints. And I believe last time when we went to the award, we kind of explained to the board why that line was failing. It was due to external damage causing corrosion. So that was kind of explained. So we did put together a budget item of $400,000 to replace this water line, and that was in last year's budget. So when we started looking at this project, we also realized that there was another project, another line that was on River Run Circle that was experiencing failures very similar to this. Again, another young water line installed in '98, experiencing breaks, us having to go out and repair them, getting those customer complaints, and the customers going to the district and saying, what's the solution to this? So we did start looking at what were some alternate solutions. Instead of replacing the lines, could we rehabilitate them? So we did contact Synexin, and I believe last time we kind of went over, we had a presentation that explained their AquaPipe product and how it is designed to extend the life of the existing lines another 50 years, and kind of went over how that process happens. And when we looked at the budget, we knew that Synexin was doing some work with, I believe, Irvine Water Ranch. So
we were trying to capitalize a little bit on some shared mobilization costs. So when we had that $400,000 budget item, and we said, okay, that's just for Stargaze, what's it going to cost to replace both of these water lines? We were looking at somewhere north of $700,000. So when Senexon gave us a quote for $383,500, clearly there's a significant cost saving to the district. So we presented that to the board, and the board did award that contract to Senexon in March of this year. We began construction in June, and we did wrap that up September 6th. We did have two construction change orders. The first is an administrative error that occurred. The board did award a contract of $383,500. We accidentally executed a contract for $378,000. So we had to correct that error and give them that $5,500. We also had a second change order. That was a deduct. They had some equipment issues that caused some additional staff time responding to complaints, and we wanted to recoup some of those costs for staff. And we also had to go out there and make some corrections to their Highline facility. And again, we wanted to recoup some of that labor cost that the district incurred. And so we had a deductive change order of $6,400. We did perform all the inspection and construction management. We had some specialty inspection as well for soil. We also discussed with Senexon and made an agreement. Because of some of the deficiencies in the Highline, there was numerous complaints about their irrigation systems, and we were concerned that we were going to get hit with some claims for landscaping replacement. So we did negotiate with Senexon what is a $20,000 holdback, what we call disputed funds, that we're going to hold back paying from them until 90 days after completion of the project. And so the customers on Stargaze Court, they came back online July 30th, and the customers on River Run Circle came back online on August 7th. And to date, we have had no claims. We're now in a much cooler season, hopefully a wetter season, so I'm hopeful that will go away. So regardless, we're still holding that $20,000, just in case. So the fiscal impact of this project, again, like I mentioned, we had a $400,000 budget to replace water line. During the award of this contract, we asked for a budget amendment to increase the budget $82,000. That gives us our $482,000. That was to rehab both water lines. We had that price from Senexon for $383,500. We have a deductive change order of only $900. That's the difference between that 55 error and the 6,400. We had some specialty testing, as I mentioned. We had some material that we paid out for our construction crew to do some of that work on the Highline. We had some staff costs in planning and design at $9,000, and then we had a $43,000 in staff time during the construction, and then of course the associated overhead. That $43,000, that's about more than double than what we anticipated at the time of award for that 482, and I can just tell you that we met with the engineering and equipment committee meeting in July, about 2/3 of the way through the project, and kind of explained to them and gave them an update on some of the issues we were having with the contractor. And I know Director Martin was out there during the lining process. I'm not sure if Director Hernandez was okay. I thought somebody else was okay. The lining process itself was actually very smooth and very well. It was some of the work leading up to that, and some of that post work that they had equipment issues, a lot of customer complaints. As you can imagine, these were two very high-profile jobs. So the end result was we spent a lot more staff time than we anticipated. And that's why that number, it was more than we estimated. So the result is we have a budget total of $538,740. That's a budget increase of $56,740. I would like to add that, as I mentioned, the lining process did go well, and staff does feel that the product, it was a good product, and if we can get that 50 years life extension out of these water lines, that's a real savings to the district. And even at that cost, again, remembering that replacement cost estimate is in the $700,000 range, we're still doing pretty good. Not that we didn't have issues, we worked through them, and we kind of explained that to the engineering equipment when we had that meeting in July. So with that, staff does recommend put forward to
budget $56,740, and to accept the project, authorize the filing of a notice of completion, releasing the retention funds to the contractor, filing a 60-day review period, and releasing the disputed funds, that $20,000 I mentioned, following a 90-day review period, provided no claims were filed. And I can answer any questions you have.
Director Evans?
I had several that you answered already. I'm glad to hear you think the trenchless process is great. You like the process.
Staff feels it's a viable option on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
This is not the new way of doing business, but it's, as we expected, it's just another tool in the toolbox that we can kind of use to evaluate on a project. Does this make sense?
Okay. Well, so I was estimating if we had done it the normal way, you were saying we'd be over 700,000.
Yes, absolutely.
So if we end up at 538, we've saved ourselves 265,000.
Yeah, and that's,
That's
the district
significant.
engineers, and that's just a construction estimate.
Well,
Still, in a replacement project, you would still have to hire an engineer to draw plans, and you would have all those associated costs as well on top of it.
Well, I just want to say kudos to staff and to the board for agreeing to go with this, sort of a new idea. And I'm pleased it worked out, and I'm so sorry I missed the lining, because I remember the director saying it was very interesting. But considering all of that, and the fact that, I think we've really done an amazing job on this one personally. I don't have any questions about it. I'd really move for approval, but that was mostly, I just wanted to make sure. Would you use the company again?
I would be hesitant.
Okay.
I think we've looked at some other opportunities. One of the biggest lessons we learned on this project is that this company is probably not well suited to be a prime contractor. They're more suited as a subcontractor, and we would much rather put a contract out for a general contracting firm who would then hire this firm or another firm that does this kind of work. They're not really suited to manage all the different aspects of this type of job.
Director Evans, we actually staff met with the contractor on a lessons learned, and then we had an internal lessons learned meeting, and we're developing basically a standard operating procedure, and we're going to share this with some other agencies. For example, Living is very interested in using this technology, and we're going to kind of tour and give them our lessons learned. But one of the things that they're just not used to the structure of having to organize work with subs on digging holes, work with traffic, work with communities. They're just used to coming out there and doing their work. So they really struggled in the transitions.
Well, I want to say compliments to you then for lessons learned and learning from it, and hopefully we can move forward and not deal with that again. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
The $56,000, is this what the contractor's requesting?
No, this is just the accounting mechanism to increase the budget to account for the overage that we had, mainly really the staff costs.
And how much?
The contractor's not doing anything additional.
How much did we cut the contractor? In other words, we had a contractor, and listening to your last paragraph was the most telling, who you would probably not hire again. He broke down. He didn't do the timeline that he said he would do, although we generously give people in our contracts an extra 2 months, no matter what they say they can do it, and we give them 45 days. I don't know why you do that. As a business person, I think that's foolish. Guy says he can do it in 30 days, give him 40. And then start digging them. Don't give them an extra 45, 2 months to get it done, especially something as critical as this, the people that were living there. Let me finish. They were inconvenienced, the people living there. They were getting irate. We had our staff have to stand out there and do jump, and you did a yeoman's job at it, jumping through circles and hula hoops to keep everybody happy. And you did a great job, and thank you very much for doing that. But all this was on account of a contractor that wasn't prepared to do the job. He had a piece of machinery breakdown, and all his men that come from all over the United States, the contractor's people, come from all over. They fly in, they fly back home on weekends, they stay in hotels, they had nothing to do, they were getting paid. I don't know why we feel that we need to pay for their incompetence?
Director Martin, to kind of address your first question, we held back $6,398 from the contractor, but when we forced him to work weekends and longer hours, we also did not accept any additional costs for any overtime, double time pay. So the total contract amount was reduced by that amount from the actual what the board awarded. You'll see that in the paragraph just above the fiscal impact, kind of, the first paragraph on page 45 of your packet. At the bottom, that's the amount withheld. What's not shown is the additional burden that the contractor bore, because we basically clearly said, you need to make up this time. You need to go ahead and get this job done. So they worked extra hours and weekends to do it. Of course, we also had to take into consideration the community. So working on the weekends actually disturbs the community even more. So we had to kind of limit that and then kind of coordinate with the community. But those costs, we didn't accept those costs. They would charge us for those costs of the overtime pay and the extra hours pay. So there was quite a bit of pain from the contractor side on their learning curve that we wouldn't even discuss with them as far as payment.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate that we went with these projects because now we know what's possible, at least short term. Again, as I said to you when you presented this project to us, there was a guy 20 years ago standing there talking about ductile iron as the best thing in the universe. So we don't know. It's going to take time to tell, but you did a great, couldn't have asked a better job of staff to keep our clients happy out there. You did an awesome job. So thank you very much for that.
Any other questions? Yes. Oh, thank you.
When I was out there at the Stargaze demonstration, I noticed up in the cul-de-sac that there was the asphalt there was like, I don't know the right way to describe it, but like uneven, kind of wavy. Was that repaired as part of this overall project, or is that still in that same condition?
Yeah, that repair is not part of the project, and that is something that the district is going to make correct. We are going to correct that asphalt and do a slurry seal on both locations. There is damage to that pavement, and that's from previous failures on the water line. And I'm working with ops to schedule that.
How long has it been like that at Stargaze, do you know?
I can't tell you. I know the first failures were in 2009, and I think the later failures were as recent as 2017. So my guess is up there at the top, that rippling that you saw was probably the last couple of years. And that doesn't happen right away. It happens over time with the trash trucks and just the different, loads on that asphalt.
It seemed to me that it was pretty bad, and I'm not a asphalt ripple expert by any stretch, but if I lived in that cul-de-sac, I certainly wouldn't be too pleased.
It was definitely bad, and it's definitely the district's responsibility to make that right.
Okay.
And that's how we feel.
And then as far as if I remember correctly from the demonstration, there's basically 2 holes cut into the ground on both sides of each individual project. Have those holes been filled and patched and basically, are they complete, or do they have like that temporary patch that's on there?
No,
that bugs me too.
Yeah, no, they've been permanently patched and taken care of. So that
And
work was included in this project.
Okay, and it's been inspected by our team, and
Yep.
it's smooth and even.
Yeah, and we had the city. Stargaze is a private road, so it's not subject to city inspection. But on River Run, that's all been approved by the city as well.
Thank you.
Stargaze has a nice company that just lives up the street.
Very good. Any other questions? Entertain a motion to increase the budget by $56,740. Move to approve. Second. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. General Manager's report. Thank you very much.
Due to the late hour, I will pass.
Legal counsel.
Just briefly, I've been asked several questions about committee meetings and lack of quorum, so I'd like to bring back an agenda item some point to discuss that. It's a little bit like wallpaper. When I started to pull it back, I got to some other issues relative to how you define your meetings, relative to your per diem policy, and et cetera. And so I'll bring that back in the future for your consideration.
Very good. San Diego Water Authority?
Actually, I had several things, but I think for the time, I'll let it go. I can send you a written one. Tomorrow is a special meeting with ENO on storage at, pump storage at San Vicente, and the audit committee's meeting in the morning to do the final review.
Very good. Encina, Capital Committee, we had our meeting this morning. I'll make it brief. The big one coming up is food waste coming into the system. And there will be a workshop in February. I'll identify to everybody when that's going to be. Anyone's invited, so we're going to get some better information on that. Policy and Finance?
Yeah, EWA Policy and Finance Committee met November 6th. That was yesterday. One item we reviewed was other post-employment benefit plan status update, and our next committee meeting is December 4th, 2018.
Very good. Standing committees. Finance? Policy? Yep. Engineering? No. Director's report and meetings, conferences, seminars, blah, 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 blah.
At the last Special District Leadership Foundation, we went down a grade, but we're District of Distinction. Self-reaccreditation was silver.
Oh.
We used to be gold or platinum, so I'm hoping next year we can go back to that.
Oh, I'll take that.
That's yours. There were a few other plaques there, but I didn't know who was picking theirs up, so I didn't pick up anyone but that one and mine.
Okay.
So I'm sure they'll probably have them at dinner coming up.
Very good. All right. I don't think, I've not been doing meetings, so any meetings?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Aqua 10 program.
Oh, yes.
Oh, was that
Yeah,
at
we
the
met
last meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
Lake, wherever the heck it was.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very good.
I do have one, I'm sorry. The Academy,
Oh, yeah.
on the 25th of last month.
Gee, we did the Academy as well.
The President and I were here,
Very
we had the
nice.
Academy.
Mhm.
Great presentation by our staff. I thought showing what a unit of water was using the PVC was a great idea. Thank you, General Manager, because it gives people something to look at to say, oh, that's what a unit of water is, rather than this idea. But great, I understand that people had a really good time. Our ex-vice mayor was on it with her husband, Pia Harris, and quite a few other constituents were here. A lot of them from Jim's district, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
We found out.
Very good.
So kudos to staff for doing a great job, as they always do. A couple of staff members a little long-winded, but other than that, it went very, very well. James, I won't mention who like that. But it was very, very good. Ed was the quiet one amongst everyone. He didn't have enough time to say anything. It was all taken up. But great presentations.
Speaking of long-winded.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, very good.
Hey, the pot calls the kettle black.
Quarterly expense, board expense, I think we got the ticket with us. Item number 4.2, North County Excellence in Economic Development Awards, December 7th. I think we should let our secretary know if we're going to attend. And then 5.1, future agenda items. A quick one, I would like to have us review our leak policy. Apparently it's forever. If you have one leak in your whole time period, that's all you get. I think we should review that, put some kind of sunset, so like myself, who has had a leak just recently, and I was told, too bad you had one 5 years ago, you're done. Little bit of self-interest there.
No.
Yeah, we can bring that to the policy.
I can't believe
Yeah,
it.
if you come to the policy meeting, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes, Director.
We're gonna have a timeline, and we might be talking about our property back there anytime soon.
It's only been 2 years.
Yeah, so I have a
No rush.
draft report in that I haven't had a chance to review yet, so I'm hopeful in December we'll come forward with some information.
Very good. Director's comment, anything?
I did want to say, I'd forgotten about the Region 10 Aqua thing. I thought it was really good and very informative, but what was most exciting for me is I went up the day earlier and was at a dinner meeting and got to meet Dave Eggerston, the new replacing Tim Quinn at the Aqua, and it was a very small dinner. So there were only 8 of us that talked, and it was very interesting, and it was good to give points. The new guy is from, Dave is from Northern California, so he doesn't know a lot about Southern California, and it was really exciting to see that he's very open and very eager to learn both about the desal and the storage possibility, energy storage, and our conservation things. A lot of people were concerned with someone from the north, but he really wants to look at it as a whole state. I was very pleased with that.
Very good. Yes, sir.
I need to add, I was at the Region 10, I thought it was very well done. Did a good job with all their presentations.
Very good. Anything further? We're adjourned.